Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. On today's episode, Moshe and I are happy to be speaking with author and founder Marcelo Calbucci about his book, The PRFAQ Framework. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Marcelo.
Thank you for having me, folks.
It's great to have you. And always, Moshe, it's a pleasure to see you.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Marcelo. Welcome to the show. All the way from the West Coast in Seattle, right?
That's right, Seattle.
Yes, very nice. So +1 for a US
Yes.
guest.
I'm always trying to get the U.S. guest list
Amazing.
up. So that's amazing. Great to have you.
You're doing very well this year, I think.
Yeah, I think this year I'm setting a trend. We're positive trend.
Amazing, amazing. And so Marcelo published this year, I think it was published in January, right?
January, yes.
2025, the FAQ framework, adapting Amazon's innovation framework to work for you, a system for innovation to think critically, articulate ideas, and inspire action. And I'm sure many of our audience have heard about Amazon, and I'm sure everyone heard about Amazon, and have heard about the 6-pagers or the PRFAQ, the different names they go by. But let's first, before we dive into that, tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get to product management and to Amazon, and then to author the book?
Sure. Like many people, I got my first computer when I was a teenager in the 80s. I really fell in love with it, learned how to code very quickly. Then went to university to study computer science. Shortly after that, Microsoft went to Brazil and hired a bunch of folks and brought me to the US with them. So I spent 7 years at Microsoft, but then I had this entrepreneurial itch and I really wanted to do startups in a time startups weren't sexy. And I spent 18 years doing startups both in the US and in Europe. Then I joined the biggest startup of them all, Amazon, 1.5 million employees or more, depending on when you count. And as soon as I joined Amazon, I was exposed to the PRFAQ framework and the many other frameworks that Amazon has. Amazon has more than a dozen of them. PRFAQ is one that resonated with me because as a founder, you really want to figure out like vision strategy for your startup or your product. And immediately felt like, ooh, this is good. So over my 2 years at Amazon, like I gathered some ideas about it. And when I left, I was like, wow, why don't I write a book about it? So I wrote a book last year and published in January, like you mentioned.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, we all always love to hear the road of people to product management, and it's always very windy through many different places. And being a founder of startups, that's a great way to get there.
Yeah.
Because you usually don't have product managers when you start, and you have to wear that hat as well. Do you see it like the ownership of the PR FAQ document as a product manager ownership? I know you are talking about the ownership in the book, who owns the document. Do you see it like this is the main people that will usually own it?
It depends on the organization and the project, right? And the initiative. So there are certain initiatives in a tech company. Let's talk about tech companies because the PRFAQ can work in any kind of company, right? But let's focus on a tech company with product managers, designers, engineers, legal, marketing, sales. Like any of this function can own the PRFAQ, but it's going to depend on the type of project. The most common person to own a PRFAQ is a PM who owns the area responsible for the project, right? But it's not unusual for a director or a VP to also own the PRFAQ, depending on how broad it is and how big it is, or even a CEO in a small startup. So it depends on size, culture, and the initiative that you're going after.
Yeah, I would assume that if it is an internal project or internal product to do digital transformation or something like that, it may not be specifically a product person. It could be someone else that owns it. etc. And also
That's
depends
right.
on.
It could be someone on finance. It could be, engineering manager, but it could also be a product manager who is responsible for a platform team.
Mhm. I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the key things that you mentioned in the book is that the owner should really be the person that will execute it eventually. So don't offload it to someone else.
Yeah, the terrible idea here is like imagine that a product manager write a PRD and then hands it off to another product manager to execute the PRD. That's not a good thing, right? Like you want the people that wrote and thought through how to do this to be the people who execute. So, whomever was writing it should be core person on the team that's going to execute the project.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, so because a PM really sits at that center of all those kind of conversations. Because I know when you have the PRFAQ structured, you've got the internal FAQ questions, and then you have the customer questions, and then you have the ultimate the press release. But the PM kind of sits in the middle of all those kind of questions and selling the value and saying like, this is why we're doing it.
Yeah, maybe actually
Yes.
let's move back a bit because we started a bit with who owns it, but what is a PRFAQ
Yeah,
and
there we
what's the
go.
Yeah.
structure of a PRFAQ and why should someone consider, writing them?
Yeah, that's great. Great place to start. Already 5 minutes into the podcast.
Yes.
So PRFAQ stands for Press Release and Frequently Asked Questions. And it's a vision and strategy document. It's not a marketing tool, despite the fact that it has the press release in the name. So you're never going to send your press release to the press, and you're never going to expose that publicly. It's confidential, just like a PRD or your OKRs or any other document that you use in your organization. And the value of a PRFAQ is really for you to discover, debate, and decide on a strategy and a vision for a product, a business, a program, a service, whatever you're doing in your organization. And what is the PRFAQ? Really is three parts. There is the document, the template, the artifact. Many people have heard about it. Like you go like, yeah, there is a press release, there is the customer FAQ, internal FAQ. That's the framework, right? If you will. The second part is like, how do you write a press release? There is a very specific way called precise writing that is a combination of storytelling and data, right? You don't want to be just storytelling. You don't want to be just data. So you want to find that sweet spot that delivers the maximum clarity for people to be able to have good conversations and decisions. And the last part of the PRFAQ is like, how do you go about writing one and using it, which I call the method, right? So how do you make it a good use of that? And what people miss about the PRFAQ is they over focus on the document. And the method is the most valuable thing. Like, how do you go about creating a PRFAQ and using a PRFAQ is where you're going to extract the value. The document is just a way to capture that information. It's almost like the meeting notes, right? But the meeting is where the value was created.
Yeah, okay. So you're right. We're always thinking about what is it, the document, which is the PR, and then the FAQs, the internal and the external. But these other two parts are how do you actually get to write a good one, right? And that's what the book is all about. So you do explain in the book the entire structure, the importance of the structure, the importance of writing. And I really like that part there. And then also later on, when you explain about the how to write and things like that, you share your method and you share a method how you wrote the book, which also apply to writing other documents. So it doesn't need to be 200 pages document like a book. It can go into a 6 pages document like a PRFAQ. But there is a method in madness, right? So can you share with us a few tips there?
Yeah, so like Amazon has a culture of writing, right? So like not only PRFAQ is one of the frameworks, but every meeting at Amazon starts with a document. Every meeting. So usually it can be a document that has just a few paragraphs, like a one-pager, or it can be a six-pager that has more elements to it. And the idea here is that when you write, it helps you develop clarity on what you want to talk about, what is your idea, helps you think critically, help you understand the gaps on your understanding, so you do some research ahead of time. But also it's very valuable when you're reading, right? So when you enter a meeting and everyone reads that same paragraph or the same 6 page before they start discussing, you guarantee that everyone has the same context, which is a big problem, right? Particularly on organizations that move fast and people go from meeting to meeting, and they might have missed a meeting or missed one message in a Slack channel or something like that, and like they don't understand, and like it takes them 5 minutes or 10 minutes into a presentation or a discussion, a meeting, to get context. The PRFAQ and other 6 page memos at Amazon like deal with that, right? Everyone is on the same page, what we're talking about. All the key information is there. So it's very valuable. The other very important aspect of writing and reading is like you really get good at articulating ideas, right? So there is a lot of hand waving when you use PowerPoint or when you draw a diagram, and it's like you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's not there, right? And people like don't talk very deeply about certain things, or they come up with them on the fly, right? When you're writing, like it forces you to like develop that articulation, like how I'm gonna tell this idea so that others can understand with clarity. So it's very valuable.
Yeah.
So when you think of the 6 pager, and that is the PRFAQ a sort of, I don't want to shortchange it, but like a Cliff Notes version of like what you're selling, your feature? Like, is it a breakdown of, hey, this is the value we're selling, this is why we're doing it, these are the frequently asked questions, but like, is it boiling down the problem so people can easily digest it?
Let's clarify a few things here. So PRFAQs are not plans.
Okay.
They are what you do before a plan. So PRFAQ is really strategy and vision. So you're painting a vision of like, this is what we're going to launch, right? Like this is the customer problem and the solution and everything, like, and you work backwards from that. So your press release, you write like, today we are launching this product, even though nothing has been done, right? So you're painting this visionary statement to work as an inspiration for people, but also to set the ground level, right? To prime everyone to like, this is what we're going to be talking about on the FAQs. And the FAQs is the meat of the conversation, particularly the internal FAQs, where you're really discussing strategic elements of this project. You're not going to discuss features. You're not going to discuss wireframes or diagrams or like details. This is about like the big questions that you're answering, like what problem are we solving? Who is the customer? Like how are they solving it today? Is this problem growing or shrinking? Like what is our solution? How is our solution different? What do we know about the solution feasibility? Right? So all those questions appear on the FAQ, and that's where you want everyone paying attention to. What you're not going to see is, here are the 15 features we're going to have when we launch. Right? That's not there. So if you think about the PRFAQ, is you're going to spend like a week or two, if you're familiar with the framework. Like it might be more as you learn how to do it, right? You're going to spend a week or two writing and having review sessions and deciding what to do. Once you decide what to do, which could be a decision of we're not going to do anything, or it could be a decision that yes, we're going to pursue this project. If it is a yes, then it's when the team gets like funded, right? The idea to like, let's go ahead and like create the roadmap, even though you might have done some pre-work, like some feasibility pre-work, some wireframing pre-work, some PRD pre-work, like the authorization to like, let's go do this. It's once the PRFAQ is approved.
Okay, that's super helpful. Yeah, so I like the way you framed it, the meat of it. So that's where everybody can come in and really get all the information they need immediately, and not have to go out to different resources, different artifacts to understand what's going on. So, okay, that's very helpful.
Yeah, and an important thing here to mention as well that I didn't say, Matt, is the reason you don't include feature lists, wireframes, mocks, diagrams is because that's what people want to talk about, right? And so our brains like are wired, like the maker brain, the builder brain is like wired to talk about the concrete stuff, not about strategy and vision. But strategy and vision is very important so you understand the outcome. Like, why are we doing this? Like, what's the purpose? What are the boundaries that we're going to set on this project, right? Are we going to allow friends to invite friends, or we're not going to allow that? Are we going to launch mobile first or web first, right? These are like important questions before you jump into like, what exactly are we doing?
Yeah, so
Okay,
give you the
that's great.
space to do that.
Yeah.
And we know that we
Yeah.
have to start every product, we have to start it with a vision and strategy. And that's the thing that a lot of people are missing because they like to go directly to the features and to the solution.
Yes.
Right. That's
Yeah.
where I was trying to get at, because like people like to get into the details quickly and start to like look into all that. And when you start to like look at a document and try to understand all that, people go in different directions and then
Yeah.
come out with
Yeah.
different answers. So
Yeah. You don't want to do on either side. Like you don't want too much strategy. Like you don't want to spend
yeah.
months discussing strategy and not doing anything. But also you don't want to jump into doing something without having at least a baseline of strategy and vision.
hmm
Now, you do mention Amazon, and you also talk about it in the book, how it's not been adopted widely like other frameworks from other companies, like OKRs from Google, etc. And as a side note, I met a few product managers that used to work for Amazon, and they told me when they left that they were too tired of writing and reading documents, that they felt all of their work was about writing documents. So
Yes.
it's probably not just about the PRFAQ. As another side note, before I get to my question, in a couple of places where I worked in the past, we did try to adopt the six pagers. Back then I didn't
Hmm.
know even they call it PRFAQ. I just called it the six pagers structure, and I looked at some examples. We wrote, we kind of got only to the point that we wrote a PR, and we a little kind of did reviews internally in the team, but then we just gave it to other people and told them this is our vision, and just live with
Yeah.
that rather than get their feedback. So we didn't go all the way, to get everyone feedback really. And then
Yeah.
the FAQs, I actually wrote them after the fact. So after developing the product, I wrote the FAQs, external FAQs and internal FAQs based on what we built and not
Yeah.
retroactively. So you also mentioned in the book that there are some modifications that you put or some eliminations from the Amazon way to make it
Yeah.
more generic or more accessible to everyone else. But you didn't really mention in the book what are those. So if you can expand a bit more on that, I would love to learn, what's the difference that you think other companies can adopt it without getting into this writing documents all day long, or not trying to emulate Amazon unsuccessfully because no one is Amazon, right? So how do you suggest companies doing that it can become successful, and what a bit is the difference from Amazon?
I like that you start mentioning about the OKRs and, like how PRFAQ hasn't become like OKRs yet.
Mhm.
And if you think about OKRs, started in the 90s on Intel,
Mm,
right? And it took like 20 years for OKRs to like branch out into Intel from Intel and Google into the world. Like it was really 2015, 2016 when you start seeing like a few videos, a few articles showing up about OKRs, and then a few books getting published a few years later. So that's when like we saw an explosion. And today, like a lot of organizations use OKR. I would say the majority of tech organizations, including startups, use
not
OKR.
all of
Not when
them
they are super early.
not all of them very successful, I might say. So not
Oh yeah,
everyone are
no, no, no.
successful using it. Mhm.
Yes, it's hard to do OKRs right? So I'm probably going to write another book about that one. But on the PRFAQ, it was invented in around 2004 by Amazon, right? And there was no books. And the first articles really start showing up like 3 or 4 years ago, but the articles are very, very small, right? Like they didn't really capture the essence of like the writing culture behind it. So one of the changes that I made from the Amazon system to the system that I propose in the book is that Amazon really doesn't have a method. Like Amazon has a template, but people learn the method from each other, right? And because like you join Amazon and like you are thrown into the system that
Mm,
people know how to use it, know how to create. So like you just absorb, right, from other people. So there
right.
was like no story of like how do you create one and how do you use it. I'm not going to say they don't have any resources. They have some resources there, but it's very loose, right? It's more about the document and the philosophy between the writing, behind the writing culture. So I propose a very specific method on the book that helps people create, because a lot of people feel resistant because they're going to say like, I don't know how to write. Like, I'm not a writer. Like, I can't write a 6-page document. But in the book, I go like, no, you can. Like, it's pretty easy. Like you write your sentences this way, you combine them into paragraphs this way, and you do it in this specific order that helps your brain process the information correctly as well. So it just like flows out of you, right? We could be having a conversation here, and like, as you speak about the things, you writing your PRFAQ. Like I'm asking like, what problem are you trying to solve? And you tell me the problem. That's the answer to the question, right? So as long as you ask the questions in the right order, you're going to get to a really good PRFAQ. The other thing that is very different in Amazon is Amazon is making big bets. Some of the bets that Amazon makes with PRFAQs are hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars bets. So, they spend a lot of time on it. And in the book, what I say is you don't want to do that, right? I mean, if you are Amazon, go for it. Like you can spend 2-3 months working on a PRFAQ, doing all behind the scenes research, triggering a team of 20 people to do user research, financial modeling, market sensitive analysis, like everything that you can imagine. Like most product leaders, most startups can't do that. So my proposal is like, it's a week or two. Right? That's the ideal length. 2 weeks is the ideal length, to be honest. It depends on the overhead, right? If you're doing a project that is really complex, you might say, we need more than 2 weeks to work on this PRFAQ.
Yeah. So this way you're not getting to a forever writing, etc.
You can time box it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Amazon, a lot of people get fatigued because of that. Because they're working on the same document for 3 months and like having reviews after review after review after review. And the fatigue doesn't come from writing the document. It comes from not seeing the result of your writing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. Now, on the flip side of these, come to mind we're in 2025 with Gen AI being everywhere and everyone trying to use Gen AI for everything. What would you say about people trying to get away from writing, but having AI write everything for them?
Yes. By the way, I do have a custom GPT that I've had all the content from the book and a bunch of blog posts that you can go to the book website. The footer has a link for the custom GPT there. It's really useful. So I'm going to say there is 3 ways to write, 3 ways to use AI to help you with your work, right? The number 1 is research, ideation, like help me think through this. The number 2 way, which is the middle way, is like do the work for me. Like write a PRFAQ for me, or like write this email for me, or like write this code for me, right? The third way, which no one really talks about, which I like the most, is critique my work or tell me what's wrong with my work, or like be an editor and like help me understand what's not clear, what's not good here, right? Or like be a product manager and review this document for me and provide feedback. This is really good use. The 2 corners that I mentioned, the front end of research and the back end of critique, I am all in favor for people to use all the time, right? Now, the middle part is where things get tricky. Like if you're gonna ask AI, like write this for me, do the work for me, or write the code for me, I would say it's okay if you're doing something tactical, but it's not okay if you're doing something strategical. And the reason for the strategical thing, you want to do yourself. You want to do the writing or the architecture or the designing, because the doing, what I call the doing, which is the writing, is the thinking, right? And if you want to think through a problem to have clarity yourself about the problem, you can't just ask ChatGPT to write you a strategy document. ChatGPT can write a strategy document, and it's going to write a really good one. It's going to read coherent, but it's just average to begin with, right? It's going to be really hard to stand out. And the other thing as well, when you're writing, there was a lot of moments that you write and you erase and you rewrite and you erase. Like all that is like feeding things to your brain to find connections between things that you haven't thought about before.
Yeah.
I don't think ChatGPT does a good job with that, right? And like the big insights of companies of products and new startups come from that moment of like you combining two, three, four different things that just because you're writing, you realize, wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is not going to do that for you.
And I think this is the creativity aspect. What does creativity means? And can the machine replace people with creativity? I had the same discussion with people in the past still about images created by AI, that they all look the same because they're not very creative. Where people, when you see an artist creating new art, you see the creativity there. You see something new that was
The lived
never created
experience.
before, right?
Yeah.
So that's the same thing with writing, etc. No, that's very cool. I love that answer because between Matt and I'm the one that doesn't use AI so much. And actually, while we are recording this episode and other episodes, I'm always taking notes for the episode notes. I don't rely on an AI recorder or something like that, though it's a tactical thing. But for me, it's also about organizing the data and remembering the data, and then also about a bit making the notes or the description of the episodes doesn't look like AI wrote it.
Yeah.
Committing it to memory as well. Yep. There's
Exactly.
one piece of AI of all this as well is having it help you, but it's it's going to miss certain context or certain background information on your customers, your market, your lived experience that it just does not know. And then unless you're like typing all this information in and training it. Um, so that's one element of all of this. It's just not, it doesn't know all the customer calls you've had, all the additional research. So unless you're programming your own GPT, that's just one thing to keep in mind. It's a strategic partner, but it's going to lack things that you only know or that your team only knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also love how in the book you treat the PRFAQ as a product and you say there is an MVP for this product that's maybe the first version you're creating, and then all the reviews or iterations that you do on the product and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that the although it's not shared externally, you shared it only internally, as you mentioned earlier, do you think that a PRFAQ can actually be your MVP for the product that you share with potential clients?
In a very few cases, yes. Right. So if you really have very few customers, let's say you're selling to like big banks or big telecommunication companies, right? You can write a PRFAQ that doesn't include confidential information or like proprietary information, like you might want to exclude any information about your finances or other secret technology that you're using to build, and use that to discuss with a customer like, does this resonate with you? Does this make sense? Is this a real problem that you have? But you don't need the PRFAQ to do that, right? Like you should be having this conversation with customers regardless, right? And you can read like a fantastic book called The Mom Test. Maybe you heard about that one. It's a great book of like how to talk to customers and like get information. And there is a phase where you discover the problem, and there is a phase that you discover the solution, addresses the problem. You want to be having those conversations at all times, regardless of using a PRFAQ or not.
Mm. Okay, no, that makes sense. I get it. It's just something that came to my mind while I was reading it. But going back to how you treat it as another product, tell us a bit about that
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Yeah, so I try to use the language of the readers of my book, right? So if you're giving if you're writing a book for product managers and founders, use the vocabulary that they understand.
Right.
And for me, it's like think of a PRFAQ as like a mini product. It's a mini internal product, right? And like your first draft is your MVP. Right. So you're going to put it out there and then you're going to review it with a bunch of people and then you're going to incorporate feedback. And they're going to tell you like, this doesn't resonate with me. This work, this doesn't work. This is not possible. This is legally not okay. Like we need to have the data in the US or we need to have the data in Europe, like whatever. Like you're getting feedback from marketing and sales and engineering and other product managers and designers. And like all the organization is like providing different views on the same idea from a strategy perspective, right? So that this is where really important not to include branding and imagery and other stuff. Otherwise, they're going to critique that, and you don't want that. You want them
Mhm.
to critique the strategy really.
Mhm.
So like every revision of the PRFAQ is like a new version of this small product, right? Until you felt like, okay, we are ready to launch in quotes here, right? And launch means make a decision. Is this a go or is this a no-go? And we talked about the go already. If it is a no-go, there is two types of no-go. One is like the opportunity is not good, right? Like we discussed, we debated, like, yeah, not a problem that we think the customers have right now, or they have a very good solution, or we can't make money, or it's not feasible, we don't have the data or the technology yet. The other one is like it is a good opportunity, but compared to everything else that we need to do, like we're gonna not do this one right now. So put that one on the back burner. Like we revisit this PRFAQ in 3 months or 6 months, right? So like you can create your like backlog of strategic ideas,
Mhm.
right? Not only user story, but like here's a repository of things that we discussed already, and like let's revive them. Let's bring them out of the closet and like do an update and decide if this is the time to do it.
So what
Okay.
level of or of ideas would you recommend to do a pure FAQ? Is it a product level, a feature level, a new version,
Mm-hmm.
and you market your target? I mean, where would you say, okay, this is just a feature and we don't really need to go into pure
Yeah.
FAQ, and this is like something, oh yeah, we should really start with that.
Yeah, I would say your test is there is no right answer here, but the test is what is the impact for the business? And impact also includes risk, right? And what is the effort and cost to do it, right? You probably, let's say you're doing a feature that's only going to take a week to implement, and it's very low risk, and it's going to have very little impact to the business, some impact, I hopefully, because you're not building things that have no impact. You probably don't want to write a PRFAQ for that one, right? But if it is a feature that takes a week, but it could be catastrophic for the business or like really change the direction of the business in terms of growth, user experience, whatever, like you probably want discussions
Yeah.
about it, broad discussions about it, right?
Mhm.
So the PRFAQ needs to be proportional to the value that this feature is going to be creating, right? So if it is too small, you probably don't want to do it. And you can do a smaller version of that, right? Like you can come up with your own system in-house to like do a one pager of a PRFAQ. It's one paragraph talking about the vision and maybe,
Mhm.
5 FAQs. I don't know. I never seen anything like that, but I think it's possible, right? Um, the the other thing as well is like how much collaboration and coordination do you need in your organization, right? If
Mhm.
it is just one person, less value. I mean, there is value in writing for sure, but not necessarily a PRFAQ. If it is like 10, 20, 50 people that are going to get involved on that, you probably want some alignment,
Yeah.
right? At
Mhm.
least so everyone is going in the same direction. So PRFAQ is really good for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that. I have taken part in a workshop before, working backwards workshop before. And as a team, we literally had ideas put out there and we walked backwards from our idea down to the questions. So in that vein, would a workshop like Miro board or, as a, thinking about products and stuff like that, would that be beneficial? Like bringing people into it and thinking, you mentioned divergent and convergent thinking. Would that whole
Yes.
experience be like valuable to the team? Just like, hey, everybody come in here, let's think divergently and then think
Yes.
convergent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The interesting thing is the PRFAQ is like it's very structured. It has like very specific guides on how you do certain things, but it doesn't tell you how you do problem discovery and solution discovery.
Mhm.
Right? And that's where the divergent thinking, convergent thinking comes into play. Like you want to figure out your own system. Are you going to do SWOT analysis? Are you going to use the Kano model? Are you going to do sprint, design thinking? Whatever you're going to do, like you need to figure that out as well. right? For that context, PRFAQ is more like a capture document. Like as you start capturing these things, you go like, oh, we don't know about this. Like get out of that mode and go do user research, go do survey, go do design thinking, go do a brainstorming workshop, whatever you're going to do, then come back and like incorporate the information. So the PRFAQ really helps you identify gaps on your thinking and pause for a minute and say like, do I know this? Can I research online right now, or like do I need to involve more people to figure this out?
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. So the PRFAQ is an artifact of that workshop exercise and team collaboration, potentially in your if you're implementing it for the first time.
Yeah. And the reason I say it's a tool for discovery is because like as you write, you discover a lot what you don't know. Right?
Right.
So that's what you're discovering really. And like, it's not the stuff that you don't know that is not important. It's the stuff that you don't know that is really important to know. And so many people like jump right into building things without answering some really basic questions about customer value, business impact, business value, everything else.
So usually before we validate, we have some hypotheses, and you will not put your hypothesis in the PR, at least not in the final version, maybe in the original version.
No, you can actually. You can include hypotheses on the PRFAQ. The PRFAQ doesn't have to be like this final perfect document, right? You
Right.
can include all kinds of assumptions and hypotheses on it, but you have to call it out. You can say like 45% of users don't use feature X and like not being a fact. Like if you're stating as a fact, it has to be a fact. If you're estimating, you say like, we believe that up to 45% of users, right? So now you're like saying like, yeah, I'm estimating. And if you really don't know, is like, we cannot get this data, but we, using our educated guess, we believe many users cannot use this feature, right? You want to avoid that kind of assumption based, like you want to go bring the data, but sometimes you can't because like you don't have access to it or whatever conditions prevent you from understanding your competitors or other things in the market.
Yeah.
So you want to call out what is, fact versus assumption or hypothesis.
Okay. And risks. So if you have any risks specifically, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Now, okay, so let's say we are convinced that we want to use a PRFAQ, and we are now either working in an organization that don't use them yet, or we are moving into a new organization and a new job. What would you suggest? How would you suggest, for someone that is convinced that they want to try it and make an effort to make it happen, to actually introduce it into the organization, even if they're not in the leader position?
Yeah. Let me say how not to do it first. The wrong way to do it is to force down people's throat, right? And the second wrong way to do it is like pick up the biggest project that you can imagine, the most impactful project for the organization, and start from that one. And say like, well, like this project's really important, so we should do a PRFAQ. I'm going to recommend the opposite. What you want to do is start from a small project, like something that is controllable and you can experiment, right? The first time you do anything, the first time you write an OKR, the first time you write a PRFAQ, the first time you write code is not good. And you should accept that, right? It's not going to be as good as the second time and not as good as the third time and not as good as the fourth time. So pick something that is small and manageable. And also, try to identify the project where there's going to be some folks who are going to be open to the idea, right? Like you don't want to force people, you want volunteers. Just like, how about we try this? Let me give you some information of what it is. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be great, but I think it's going to create this kind of value for us. So let's give it a try. And some people are going to be like, yes, let's do it. Love it. Some people are going to be like, I don't know, but like, I'm willing to do it. And you might even have some people that are like, I don't want to do this, right? So it's good for you to identify those people and work with them so they feel comfortable with de-risking their own career, if you will, right? Because usually what's going on is like, this is going to be more work for me. This is going to impact our availability to ability to ship this feature, like I'm really worried about it. So if you can say like, wait a second, like here's the fallback plan, like we can do this safely in an isolated manner, just like a feature flag. Let's call it this way, right? You're doing a PRFAQ as a feature flag. So
Yeah.
like if something goes wrong, like you can turn it off and like, let's go back to the old ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if we're not talking about months and months of investment.
Yeah.
We're talking about a week
Yeah.
or two, and we do it maybe as a parallel to something else or as a
Yeah.
trial, like let's try it out and see how it works. And you do have a chapter towards the end of the book where people can actually download in all the resources. Your resources section on your website is actually quite elaborate, and we will share with the description of this episode all the different links for that. But you have a chapter over there that explain the method in a few pages, probably
Mm-hmm.
not more than 6 pages, like the the size of the PRFAQ. It could be a helpful way to help people explain to others, share it with them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Mhm.
I have a chapter called like reviewing a PRFAQ that people can download for free to understand like, okay, if I'm not the one writing the PRFAQ, I'm just reading, like what should I do?
Right.
Yeah.
But that could be helpful as well to talk with other people about,
Yeah.
or I don't know, maybe I gave you a new idea over here to how to convince, to have a resource, how to convince people in the organization to start using it.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. No, that's these are very good suggestions because we know how complicated this can be, to introduce new methods and stuff like that, especially if people had heard bad things about something and they're like have resistance towards it. So if someone just want to call it whatever they want to call it, they don't have even to call it the PRFAQ or the Amazon method. They can just call it, my own methods to do these things or whatever, then I think by all means, as long as you can, get the value from that.
I tend to think that people need at least 3 quarters to see if something is going to work or not. Right?
Mm.
Too many people say like, let's adopt a new framework, a new method, a new process, whatever, and like it doesn't work the first time around, and like abandon. That's a
Abandoned.
Mm.
terrible idea. Like you don't know. Like keep going, keep trying, like try the next quarter, try the next quarter, and then you're gonna see like, oh, wait a second. Like we were doing it wrong. We weren't considering this. Like we didn't really pick up this. It was just like resistance from the old way. And
Mhm.
now like you get the value. One of the
Mm.
things that cause framework fatigue is that people try and abandon, try and abandon, try and abandon. Like when you come with another framework, they're like, I don't want to do. Like we abandoned like 4 frameworks in the last 12 months.
Mhm.
Like that's not the problem. The problem is the organization doesn't have the persistence to like keep doing this, even though the difficult times is going to get better later. So you never get to the better point.
Mm. Yeah.
Like anything in product, it takes iterations. So trial and
Yeah,
error.
that's right. That's right. Process is a product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I just want to mention also that you have 3 examples of PRFAQ, actually maybe 4, because
Four, yes.
one at the beginning and 3 at the end.
Yeah,
And what I liked about them was that they were for different type of products. So it's not just, a digital product that the company is building. There could be an
yeah.
internal project. There is a physical service in a physical location. So it really can go towards any type of initiative.
Yeah, and that's how I recommend people start it. Like if they never seen a PRFAQ, if they don't know what it is, like read the examples first.
Mhm.
Like so at least you're gonna have a sense of, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I can use on my organization. So
Mm.
that's the first thing you should go to the website, download and read it. And I formatted just like a PRFAQ. It sounds like a PRFAQ. It's all fictional though. So like it's a good place to start. Then you can say like, okay, I think this is work for me. So get the book or use the online resources that I put out there to learn how to do this.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Do you have any
Very
other
good.
questions, Matt?
Yeah, just having written the book, what's one of your key takeaways and what you've learned along the way in writing the book and talking to people about PRFAQs? Love to hear that.
Maybe it's just my confirmation bias, but in as part of writing the book, like I read a lot of scientific papers about the power of writing and reading for our brain. And it's so evident that writing is a powerful form of thinking and help you articulate, remember, and recall information much better than anything else, right? However, the way we live today is a lot more PowerPoint driven, a lot more whiteboard driven, and that is not as effective. And I attribute that to some of Amazon's success. They got really good at writing. Everyone at Amazon is trained on writing and learn how to do this day in, day out. Of course, sometimes they don't see the yield on it and like they feel frustrated, but it helps really think clearly. So I think that's the biggest takeaway of what I learned last year.
Yeah, very cool.
Excellent.
Very cool.
Cool.
Yeah, and I should mention, Marcelo is mentioning in the book how the extensive background and research he did to write the book, and the percentage of time that he put into research versus the actual writing. So it's actually really interesting for anyone that wants to write a book about product management or about anything really. So I appreciated that section as well.
Yeah. That's right. Like whatever you're gonna write, the writing usually is not the longest pole. It's really what you do before the writing, like collecting information and discovering information.
Yeah.
If you have everything in place, like the writing is just matters of hours.
Yeah. Amazing. Where can people reach out to you?
Go to the book website. Just go to Google and search for PRFAQ book. My book is going to be the #1 result there. Click on the book website, and then on there you can find all the contact information.
Okay. Amazing.
Wonderful.
Perfect. And as I mentioned, we can also mention in the description some links to the resources and to the book.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. Yeah, your site has a lot of great information, so recommend it to all the listeners out there. So on that note, Marcelo, thank you so much for joining the show today. Moshe, thank you as always. Thank you to all the listeners out there, and we'll talk to everybody next time. Take care.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Marcelo.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.